Okay, here goes. So, as I say, I'm Alice Meadows. I'm the very new Director of Communications for ORCID. I'm thrilled to be joining the organisation, and I do feel like I've learned a lot in this first couple of weeks, and actually learned something from Tony's presentation, and thank you for that, Tony. So I'm going to talk a little bit about peer review. First of all, a little bit about ORCID. I suspect that everybody in the room is pretty familiar with our organisation. Tony gave you a little bit of information as well, but this is our mission statement. So really, we're all about solving the name ambiguity problem and the use of standards and IDs. So it really, very good segue from your presentation. I think everybody is probably also aware of the so-called peer review crisis, so the fact that research output and articles are continuing to grow at a steady rate of 3 to 4% annually, but the resource that's needed to keep pace with that in terms of peer review isn't necessarily keeping up, so we need more reviewers, and in order to do that, we need to recognise them. Very luckily, on the left of the screen, you have my boss, Laurie Hack, the Executive Director of ORCID, and on the right is Rebecca Lawrence, the Faculty of 1000, a sort of chance conversation between the two of them at the Society for Neuroscience led to actually making some progress, we hope, in terms of helping to solve the problem. And what they felt was that there was a real opportunity to kind of collaborate our way to success by partnering with other organisations and individuals that were concerned about the peer review crisis. Perhaps we could come up with a way of incentivising, motivating, and also building trust in the peer review system, which I think has been sort of shaken a little in past years. So the first thing we did was to set up a community working group, and the intention was to define some standards and business rules that would work across all the very many different types of peer reviews that are used in all sorts of different settings. And actually, it's fascinating. I hadn't realised until I read this how many different use cases there are. So the next few slides are just going to be the logos and information about the partner organisations on the working group. And I'm going to just talk you through the use cases that the working group looked at. So first of all, the first one was open peer review, which is what Faculty of 1000 use. And as with everything, open peer review takes different forms. So sometimes the reviewer's name appears, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes the editor's name appears, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it might be pre-publication, it might be post-publication, it might be both. So they really had to take into account all those different variations. The second use case was closed peer review, which is much more traditional, much more widespread. But again, there are lots of different variations on a theme, single blind, double blind. Sometimes other reviewers see the reviewer comment, sometimes they don't. So again, building a system that could deal with, or a data set that could deal with all of this was critical. The third use case was conference and meeting abstract reviews, which, again, I only recently realised what a huge issue this is. And I think Brooke Hansen from the AGU was telling me that they have something like 100,000 abstracts submitted. It's stunning. I can't even begin to imagine how you deal with that many. The fourth use case was a sort of general reviewer recognition. So, a number of journals and organisations actually will do a sort of general thank you at the end of the year, or a sort of blanket recognition, and they wanted to take that use case into account as well. The fifth use case, of course, very importantly, is promotion and tenure committee external review of materials. So that might be at the university level, the faculty level, or the department level. So having a system that would work for that. And then the last one, which again actually for me was new, is annotation as a use case. So this is where, for example, in some disciplines, particularly where there's a strong culture of preprints, people will go and annotate, and sometimes those annotations really prove to be very significant in the future development of the research. So those were the 6 use cases, and we have a number of early adopters who are going to start rolling out versions of this. I'll talk in a minute about the output, but the early adopters include Faculty of 1000, who are going to post validated review activity to relevant ORCID records on their platform, as well as working to facilitate integration into conference workflows. The American Geophysical Union working with eJournal Press to collect ORCID IDs for their reviewers and post validated reviewer activity to their ORCID records. The American Political Science Association's Politics and Religion Journal are going to collect ORCID IDs. Peerage of Science are going to integrate ORCID and review citation standards into their new reviewer profiles feature. European Public Central will display reviewer information, and QDOS is working to test workflows and APIs for displaying peer reviewer citations. So lots of good work going on. The result of the working group was the production of this peer review activity data profile around the person, the review, the subject, and the organisation. And most of the fields are not mandatory in order to meet the sort of need for flexibility for all these different sorts of peer review that are happening. You can read more here. I'm sure you'll all want to write down these nice long URLs. The top one is the actual working group output. The bottom one is the blog post that we posted last week, which gives you a bit more information about what happened and how it happened. Oh, gosh, I can't believe. Little pause for breath. Next steps. So we have just started running implementation workshops for these early adopters. The first one was Wednesday. The next one is next week. We're going to be working with vendors, obviously, such as Aries. We want to evaluate the results. We really want to spread the word and increase adoption. But the main thing is that we are doing this to get more credit for reviewers so that we can really make sure that there's a new generation of reviewers who are bought into providing their services in this way. I just wanted to finish with, this is a list of ORCID's launch partners. One of the things that has really struck me since joining ORCID is how very collaborative they are. I mean, we're a small, non-profit organisation. We need to collaborate. We need to work with people in and around our space. And so I really encourage any of you who have ideas about how we might be able to work with you to talk to me afterwards. Thank you.